Alright everyone out there in guitar land, Mike Heading here, coming to you today with a free guitar lesson. We're going to work on a cool little easy pentatonic lick that you can use to transition all over the neck. So I like using licks like this for two reasons. One, like I said, it gives you a way to transition around the neck, but it's also a really good way to learn the fretboard by trying to find that lick, those same notes in various places on the fretboard. And if you can connect that in your mind of, okay, if I can play that lick down here, how do I play it up here or on a different set of strings? It's really good practice learning the fretboard. So we'll break down the lick. I'll show you how to spice it up a little bit if you want to, and then we'll show you how to move it around to different keys. All right, so let's jump into this pentatonic transition lick lesson. Here we go. Okay, so like I said, it's a major pentatonic lick, kind of in the style of the Allman Brothers. If you're familiar with the song Blue Sky, he uses a lick like this in a different key to kind of play the intro part. So that's the kind of lick we're going to use. He does it in the key of E, but we're going to do it in the key of G to start. So we're going to start down on our 3rd fret of our lowest string with our index finger. Again, kind of thinking out of this G shape here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play that note again, and then we're going to slide from 5 to 7 with our ring finger. So you do, and then 5th fret on the 5th string, and then 7th fret, and then 5th fret on the 4th string. Kind of similar to like the G run down here. Kind of similar to that idea, but we're just playing it now with closed notes. So why are we using closed notes? Closed notes means we're not using any open strings. What's the benefit? There's pros and cons to closed notes. Closed notes don't ring out as much as open strings, right? But the benefit to closed notes is then once we get it down, we get the lick down, we can move it around very easily to different keys. That's the lick. See if we can find that same lick starting here now at our next G right here. And we're going to play the same lick. Which is we're going to end on the 8th fret of the 2nd string. We have to modify that last note because we have the B string. So we have. So this is good ear training practice as much as it is fretboard knowledge, right? Actually start from this G. This one's going to be a little bit different, but we're going to play that note and then slide from, what is that, 10 to 12, and then we do 10, 12, way up to 15 on the high string, way up there. So you have, the other way I might do that is this way. Switch to my middle finger right here, which allows me to get a little more stretch. So what I would do is practice going up the notes. Or you can practice kind of going back down, and you don't have to play the lick exactly the same once you get it. Right? So you can go up or down. It's good transitioning practice both directions. That's what we're going to practice, right? So we're playing it up here. That's getting up into our cage kind of D shape. That's still a G chord. We're going from this G down here, kind of like a bar chord, right? Sliding up. And then we're getting all the way up into this, which would be essentially the A shape of cage, right? One more spot to play. There's a few more, but another spot you could play would be right here. Starting on that, what is that, the 10th fret of the 5th string. Or you could do it this way. way up there. Alright, so way up there. So again, I would use this more as ear training than what particular lick you're playing. Just use this lick as a jumping off point. Once you get it down, you can mix up the lick, you know, play around with the notes. You know, something like that. And remember, it doesn't have to be exactly the same. It's good practice to try and play it the same, but if you get it similar, it's fine to practice it, right? Another way, if you want to add some more outside notes, you could do something like that. Adding this 8th fret, which is like the dominant 7th, flat 7th note, right? I'm still thinking out of these shapes. So use those shapes to move around. Notice I'm always sliding from the 2nd note of the scale through the minor third up to the major third. That's very like a country way. You can also just slide from the minor third to the major third if you want a little bluesier. Might have heard something like that, right? Practice going up and down the notes once you get it down. Then you can transition back down. Okay, so like I said, we're using all closed notes there. That's in G. So if we want to move it around, you can do it in A. Get pretty high up there on a dreadnought because I don't have the cutaway, but you get the idea. What's nice about that lick too is you don't even have to know necessarily what key it is. You could just start somewhere. Right, so that'd be F. Let's say you're just trying to find a recording that sounds good. Maybe you're just moving your finger around. You're like, oh, that sounds good. Maybe you don't even know what chord that is necessarily. You can still play the lick. That'd be A flat, right? A key that you probably wouldn't normally be familiar with, but if you use closed position notes, right, then it becomes easier. And I'm really keying into the shapes. The other thing I'm trying to do is use the same fingers as much as possible, right? So that's going to help my muscle memory cue in that the lick is the same, okay? So that's really important. You could also start it on a different string, right? So you could do it in D here. You gotta modify the fingerings on the 2nd one because you have the B string, but you have... Work on your ear training there. You could also start it down here, which would be the same as like starting it up in G, right? So you could do it in D down here. So if you run out of room up the neck, the chances are that same pattern exists lower down here, right? So for D, for example, we're doing it here. And then the pattern changes. Right, same lick. We're picking those spots to play that lick. Or you could come back here. Right, so you can move it around. Like I said, the Allman Brothers did it in an E, I believe, down here. those same fingerings, right? So you could do something like... That's kind of like almost like a Grateful Dead, Jerry Garcia kind of sound, where you're playing that Mixolydian with the flat 7. So like I said, once you get it down, you can mix up the licks. You know, you can do more picking, or more hammer-ons, or pull-offs. Like I said, you can hammer on. All right, so give that some practice. Obviously, you're not going to get it perfectly at first. That's not the goal. The goal is really to try your ear training and practice moving around the fretboard a little bit. So the advice I always give with ear training is it's challenging at first, and there's 2 steps to good ear training. Is 1, hearing if you're on the wrong note, and step 2 is getting to that right note. So if you only can do step 1 where you hear that you're not playing the lick right, that's okay. That's step 1, right? Step 2 is finding those correct notes, but if you can only do step 1, you're still part of the way there. The worst case scenario is if you can't even hear if 2 licks are different or the same. That's where you run into the real issue. So try to avoid that if you can, and really cue into, am I playing those same notes? Even if they're an octave up or another place on the fretboard, really try and cue into that so you're listening and building that muscle memory, the ear training to, if I can play something down here, now I have another spot I can play that on the neck. It's a really good way to learn the fretboard, like I said. All right, give that some practice. Hopefully it helps you out. Good luck and keep picking. You got this.